Welcome, I'm Lorraine Driscoll, and this is Building Better Brains, where each week we explore drug-free solutions and brain training therapies to address why your child might be having a hard time learning, reading, or behaving. Today, we're going to talk about why your child's behavior might worsen after swimming and what you can do about it. So you might not have even noticed this as an issue yet, or you might not have made a connection, but listen up. It might be quite the revelation. So up until the summer, I didn't mention chlorine to my clients because of all the toxins that are of concern. Chlorine was the least on my radar. In fact, the only reason I knew how chlorine can impact behavior, mood, and brain function is because of my daughter. When we finally learned my daughter had PANS, an autoimmune disorder in which her immune system is attacking her brain, I did everything I could to heal her gut and limit chemical exposure. By chance, I came across an article about how sensitive PANS and PAN children were to chlorine and how it can set them off, or even set them back into a full-fledged flare, meaning massive inflammation in the brain. And this is what every PANS or PANDAS parent tries desperately to avoid. So my daughter's increased irritability, sensitivity, sensory overwhelm, if you will, anxiety, and even tics all became markedly pronounced within hours of being in the pool. I couldn't imagine telling her, you can't swim anymore. She loved it so much, so I didn't, and I'll tell you more about what you can do in a moment without telling your kid, you can't go in the pool at all. I didn't realize, to be honest, how much ADHD and even autism spectrum kids were impacted by chlorine. I thought my daughter's case was unique because of the immune factor. Then summer has come along and clients have told me they feel like they were, that they're doing everything right and their child is still regressing. And after doing some digging, both trying to make connections with what's going on with them and some research, the common denominator in all of these instances, or most of them, is chlorinated pools. So again, I promise I'm not about to ruin your child's summer fun or yours. No one is asking you to get rid of your pool or not allow your child to swim in a pool. But if you do have a child with ADHD, autism spectrum, PANS, PANDAS, or any other neurodevelopmental disorder, we need to talk about chlorine, both how it affects your child's behavior, their immune system, and their liver. And I know that when moms start learning about all their child's triggers, it can be overwhelming. It can feel like, compared to the other kids, you're requiring your child to live in a bubble when it comes to avoiding toxic exposure. And many of us are aware of the harmful effects of chlorine in our drinking water, especially mother warriors of autism spectrum and PANS children. But we don't think much of bathing in chlorine because most of us aren't aware just how much our skin absorbs. So about 50% of what we put on our skin is absorbed. And for many people, that percentage is even higher. So if you think I am being paranoid, consider this. Both the CDC in the US and the American Society of Pediatrics acknowledges the health hazards of chlorine and chloramine, and that children with ADHD, autism, and other health issues will experience more intense effects from chlorine exposure. The American Academy of Pediatrics did a study on the effects of chlorine on nearly 1,000 children and found that chlorine impacted the immune system of children, increasing their symptoms of everything from asthma to allergies to a worsening in behavior. The Oxford Journal of Medicine also warns that drinking chlorinated water is not only a risk factor for an increased risk of cancer, but swimming in chlorinated pools as well puts people at a much higher risk. So the recognition of the neurotoxic effects of fluoride, you've probably heard, has made headlines by multiple sources such as Harvard University and The Lancet, which, by the way, is the world's oldest and most prestigious medical journals. And it has been banned from most European countries, many Asian countries, and many other cities and even states in both the US and Canada. Yet chlorine comes close behind fluoride in terms of its toxicity and is simply not getting the attention it needs. So before I explain how you can lessen the impact of chlorine on your child's system, let me briefly explain why it's a problem. So the issue is that many autism spectrum, ADHD, and PANS children have something called PSD. So phenyl sulfur transferase is what it stands for, and they have issues with this. And among many toxins, chlorine can seriously aggravate these problems, which will, among many things, result in a worsening of behavior and further immune dysfunction. Chlorine is a toxin that impacts every organ system in the body, but wreaks the most havoc, if you will, on the immune system and the liver. So as if the skin being a sponge isn't problem enough, the chlorine gas that is released from the water enters the lungs very easily and then passes into the bloodstream. In fact, after only about 40 minutes of swimming, there is an increase in markers for DNA damage. The most common complaints about chlorine are fatigue, exhaustion. If you haven't noticed, if you swim in a chlorinated pool all day or half the day, you're exhausted. And swimming is much less exhausting if you swim in lakes, rivers, and the ocean because of the absence of chlorine. Other symptoms that are reported from chlorine are asthma, rashes, defiance, aggression, irritability, sensory overload, hyperactivity, even an increase in OCD and tics, as well as respiratory problems and coughing. So I'm not going to sugarcoat anything here. Limiting your child's exposure to chlorine is definitely ideal, both in terms of what they're ingesting and what they're kind of, swimming in or bathing in. So swimming at beaches is preferable, and there are also so many other types of pools that no longer require chlorine. I also try to limit the amount of chlorine or the amount of time my daughter spends in the pool without ruining her life. So instead of, say, swimming every single day in a pool, we do try to mix it up between beaches and pools and so forth. But if swimming in a chlorinated pool is unavoidable, then consider these tips, or more specifically, this protocol that moms of autism spectrum, ADHD, and PANS children have been advised to do by their doctors. And this protocol helps to neutralize the effects of chlorine after their children have been swimming. So taurine is my number one approach. This amino acid helps to produce GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that is often low to begin with in children with ADHD and so forth, and it helps to promote feelings of calm and relaxation and regulates the sensory systems. So taurine helps to bind and detox chlorine, and once taken should stay in your child's system for approximately 48 hours. This works best when given at least 30 minutes before swimming. Before swimming, also to help mitigate chlorine, have your child shower to saturate their pores with water. Once they're out of the shower and dry, apply coconut oil or a natural organic sunscreen before entering the pool. The oil kind of acts as a barrier and further helps to prevent the absorption of chlorine. If possible, showering after swimming can help remove and wash off any chlorine from your child's skin to prevent any further absorption. And when your child is out of the pool, or the shower, if you've decided to rinse them off, you can also spray your child with an Epsom salt or magnesium sulfate spray, or you can even use like a magnesium sulfate cream on their body that can be purchased at health food stores and so forth. So some people mix this with their all-natural organic sunscreen. Also, supplements that can help on an internal level are vitamin C and magnesium. So vitamin C helps to neutralize and undo chlorine's damage. Definitely use a high quality vitamin C to detox the body, and feel free to add some vitamin C to the magnesium spray bottle. Supplementing with magnesium can further ensure your child's magnesium levels are optimal. Magnesium gets rapidly depleted in the body upon exposure to chlorine. Iodine is another one you want to use. So iodine is also absolutely crucial, and also why many women with hypothyroid tend to worsen after swimming in chlorinated pools. Both chlorine, fluoride, and bromine block iodine absorption. So many children with autism spectrum and ADHD do have thyroid problems that often go undiagnosed because they are not serious enough to show up on standard blood tests. And we all know that iodine is necessary to support the thyroid as well as proper immune function. So supplement with iodine if necessary. I prefer to use a high quality kelp supplement, or you can also drop drops of Lugol's iodine. I do that on my daughter's wrist each night, And this method is great because you will know when you are no longer deficient, because there will no longer be an iodine stain on the wrist the next day if the body no longer requires it. So I know countless children whose behavior became so severe after swimming in a chlorinated pool. The moms were desperate to find a solution because their kids loved swimming, and swimming was very therapeutic for their children as well on so many other levels. And so they really didn't want to cut that out. And both Biomed and Dan doctors, Defeat Autism Now doctors, recommended detox baths on a daily basis if necessary. And if the moms really didn't want to end swimming lessons, but their children were seriously regressing, sometimes even twice a day. So it does sound extreme, but that is an option. So baths with Epsom salts, baking soda, and peroxide can help to increase detoxification and keep regressions at bay. Baths should be a minimum of 15 minutes, And lastly, increase probiotics and enzymes, as chlorine does kill good bacteria, good and bad, right? And healthy gut bacteria has many purposes. Detoxing is one. So please keep in mind, as always, to consult your child's healthcare provider about these tips before making any changes. If you're interested in getting more support with addressing the root cause for poor focus, learning, and behavior, then contact me to learn more about my 6-month program, The Full Potential Clinic. To learn more about how you can help your child move beyond their limitations and soar to their full potential, contact me for a free 20-minute Better Brain Breakthrough session. Hop onto my website and take my free quiz to learn exactly why your child might be struggling and what you can do to help them learn better and behave better. Thanks for listening.